Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UFO Roundtable. I'm your host, Larry Jamerson. This is the edition for this coming Saturday, the 18th. We are bringing in this program on Memorex tape, so you won't be able to call in, but you can certainly call in next week and get back to me. I have a guest tonight. His name is Jess Fritsch. I met him at the Bay Area UFO Expo, which recently took place in San Mateo, California. He is an expert on the electrogravitic propulsion systems. He did some work for NASA. It's classified, so we won't ask him about that. He's with Northern California MUFON. He does mailing and he does many types of work for the program. So welcome to the program, Jess. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Thank you, Larry. It was a nice drive down here.
We have a lot of people in my audience who kind of like to get into the nuts and bolts. They want to know how the UFOs fly. And I know from my talks with you that it appears that there's no real proof that we've back-engineered anything like, you know, the Lazar work that we've heard so much about, that there's just no hard evidence. But what you have brought to us here is what we do know about what is known as electrogravitics. Is that the work of a man by the name of T. Townsend Brown? It's based on his research.
Yes, that's correct. It goes back to the mid-1920s when he was working as an assistant for an astronomer by the name of Byfield. And Byfield, during his studies, saw something and then turned it over to him to see what he could do with it. And it took him essentially from then all the way up to 1958 to finally convince the U.S. government that it was real.
You have a number of like engineering drawings there, like I saw at the expo. This is based on hardware that was put together by this man, and I believe our government may be using this technology now.
That's correct. These essentially drawings that Brown did himself. Right off from his own blueprints, his patents that he did. And we'll start with the low-end use of the technology, which is our great new B-2 bomber.
I understand that the bombers that went over to Kosovo didn't have to fuel up. They went one way.
They have an ability to, once they get started, because the four engines in it are flame jet generators. They're for producing electricity only. So once they get going, they build a field up around the craft. They can shut all four engines down. They have unlimited range and no fuel consumption. Otherwise, they can go round trip and not refuel.
That's what they did.
And that's exactly what they did. The actual title for the bomber is the B-2 Stealth Advanced Technology Bomber. There's no word of an aircraft in it because it is not an aircraft. It does not use air to lift, causing the wings to lift and so forth, like a regular airplane does. So this craft can actually function inside a vacuum. In fact, they've proven it works better up there.
I noticed it has a delta boom, kind of a triangle shape there.
Well, it's in that kind of shape, and also you'll notice there's no tail section, and that's the thing. And they try to come
makes
up
it not an airplane.
Well, they kind of come up with all these reasons for why and how they can still turn it in that. Well, it doesn't work that way because essentially the leading edge of the wings are charged positive, a very high voltage positive charge, and then out the exhaust they put out electrons out that, so you have your negative charge and your positive charge, which creates your field around the craft. And by simply...
So it has a field.
Yeah, and essentially by charging, say, more, actually what I would say the frequency range, more on the wing tip, on the positive, on one side or the other, you can turn it. So it's from left to right.
Totally different technology than anything we've ever had before.
My son is with the Air Force, and he was at Tinker guarding the B-2s, and he says even on the at the base theater where they show the lead in and all that for their little films, they have the B-2, and the clouds have definitely been doctored in the film. Because when this thing goes through a cloud, a normal airplane, the cloud just slowly goes up over the wing. This thing, it bellows out way up above and below it, so that you're actually seeing that there's a field around the craft.
So they don't want people to even see the field in photos, so they doctor up the clouds?
That's
Is that what
correct.
I hear you saying?
That's correct.
So in other words, we have something that's still classified enough that even photographs have to be modified to show.
Well, they're ordered guards, and it's on a display area at the base, and they're stamp around it. That if you get to within a certain distance of it, they have orders shoot to kill, and you're not allowed to come in from behind the craft either. That's highly classified. The reason why these engines are recessed in is that there's a collector plate under the back part which collects excess ions and then runs it back in through the electrical system. It's not because of heat, as they try to claim it to be, so that it's not that, because electrogravitics does not produce heat, so there's no way that you have a heat-seeking missile can get to this.
You need a source of electricity, so they do have to have fuel to generate electricity.
Right.
But that's not the reason for fuel. The fuel's not
the fuel is there to run the engines. To run the engines.
Yeah, right.
Because they're essentially a jet engine, but instead of for thrust, they're there as a generator to produce electricity, and that's all they do. So even when you hear it and you see people see a taxiing on a runway and that, it has a jet sound. You actually do have that. But once it gets up in the air, it quiets way down, and you don't have to hardly even hear it.
Now, I consider T. Townsend Brown to be one of those researchers whose work was largely suppressed. In other words, people say they don't have a clue about this man except people who go to UFO conventions, who read up on the books. But generally speaking, his work is not published in the physics books, is it?
No, because number one, he did not even have a degree in physics.
Oh, he didn't.
This is another thing that's very interesting, why it took him so long to convince anyone, because all of the professionally PhD physics people in that were trying to say, well, it's producing ion wind. Well, so he puts it in a vacuum chamber, and it works better. Otherwise, the craft works better in a vacuum than it does in the atmosphere. It's because of he not having that degree that he was bucking against the elitists in the fields for so long. And that once he was actually able to prove this to the government in 1958, he was then ordered to finish up his work, which he finished by around 1960, roughly in that time period, and then they took everything away from him. And he wasn't even able to talk about it or to even work on anything connected with it. And according to his daughter, there's a bigger picture to the technology than just the propulsion drive. And I'll get into that later.
Now, this vehicle that was photographed on the Nellis test range in 1994, I've noticed that at times, if you look at the video carefully and you think about it, there are times when you can actually see the force field around it?
That's correct. In the first part of the tape, it's at the S-13 site, and the craft is approximately 4.5 miles away from the camera, so you're just seeing a small blob of light off in the distance. But it's important during that section of the tape because the controllers are, if you listen to them, they're trying to call around and find out, does anyone have anything? Does anyone know what this is? And they see it on radar and they see it on the camera. So what they do is they call a launch up. A launch up is to lock radar on the object. This is what you do just before you, in a sense, get ready to shoot at it. And lo and behold, they got a lock. They actually have a kill. And it's at that time when they then take the lock off that this craft pulls a right turn and suddenly accelerates, coming up and towards the back and moving away from it. And they actually having a very difficult time keeping up with it because it's moving so fast. They go from the S-13 site to the S-30 site.
These are radar sites that are on the
all
range?
Around the range, which is about 3 million acres. There are sites, and each site has a remote control camera and a radar unit.
That's what took the photograph.
This is what took the photo.
The remote cameras plus the radar.
What they're there for is to make certain you don't have craft straying in or there's aircraft going over and bombing, that they have people on the ground working, that they're not dropping bombs on them, real ones. So that's essentially what the controllers are, since they're civilian contract workers only. So, I mean, they're not classified. When the 117 stealths flew in the area when they were testing them, all these sites are supposed to be shut down.
But this one gobble was turned on for some reason.
Someone don't know why they were open, because when they get to the S-30 site, that's where you start coming in closer on it, where you can actually see it at times you'll see a black blob, and it gets larger as it goes in on the tape, as they zoom in closer on it. But you can actually see the fluctuation of the field around it, and it looks like two blades like a helicopter at times. And they'll actually stay down there. They think they have a helo. Helo is term for a helicopter.
Sure.
And it gives that impression at times, but it's not. Because when they get in further and closer on it, you can actually see it's a black disc-shaped craft. And then there's white that'll show up on it, which is this field. It's an immense field.
It looks like clover leaves or something like that.
That's where you're seeing there's four plates, top and bottom. And so that you can control your direction by changing the polarity.
Which one has the most charge or less charge?
No, it has nothing to do with the charge. It can be the same all the way around. But it will move towards the positive charge. This is what they found out. And the most simplest way to talk about this is to think of a capacitor.
Yes.
And you have a positive plate and a negative plate, and you charge it. And the capacitor is just a reservoir, like if you put water in a behind a dam and holding it there, and then you release it, and that's what it's doing. So once you build that up, it stays, and then by the frequency modulation, up and down, you increase your speed, or you faster or slower, or you slow down on it. So that's how you control it. And by changing the polarity, if you have four plates, like a circle cut in fours, you can then have, say, two positive, two negative in the back. It's going to move towards the positive. To change your direction, it's just simply changing one plate's or two plates' polarity from positive to negative and negative to positive. And you're going to have an instantaneous direction change. In the Space Shuttle video from STS-48, which is in 1991, it was beamed live down to the Earth to everybody. NASA, they really messed up because now everything is time delayed and scrambled. But,
yeah, that was a live one that Hoagland, I think, has presented a number of times.
Well, Hoagland is not the only one that's done it.
Yeah, many people have presented
it. Many have that. What you're seeing is a craft come up along the edge of the Earth, and it's about 1,700 plus miles away from the shuttle. And it comes up and it's cruising along at Mach 64, which is 54,000 miles per hour. That's cruising speed of this disk. And it moves along, and then there's a flash that you see in the camera. What that is, that's an optical illusion. Because what they don't show, and no one's really centered on, is what fired those two. It's brilliant pebbles. It's a Star Wars weapon.
Yeah, I thought.
There's two streams. This thing pulls a right-angle turn, so it's going along at 54,000, pulls a sudden right-angle turn, and 3 seconds later surpassed 430,000. It was still accelerating. That's an 18,000 G turn. Now, a lot of people are thinking, oh, these poor guys, if there's anybody in it, their blood stains on one of the walls. Is nothing to do with that. They have no sensation of movement whatsoever.
They're in their own gravity field.
They're inside a gravity field, just like you're inside a gravity field on the Earth. You don't feel it rotating on its axis or moving in its orbit. On its axis, we're moving 1,000 miles per hour, and we have no sensation of movement.
No, I don't feel anything now.
That's the whole principle behind this. And
create your own gravity field. And
right, and you don't have to worry about that. As I say when I do my talks and that, you could have a cup of coffee sitting on a table in there, and you pull that turn, they won't even ripple. If that's the kind of thing, they have virtually no sensation of movement. They have to rely on their instruments to know they're actually moving.
Now, the numbers we see across the top, that is provided by the radar site?
That's at the radar site.
They imprinted that on the videotape.
No, it's right on the screen.
Oh, that's what...
It's part of it, and it has to do with the site information and time and radar that's at the bottom.
Azimuth?
And azimuth, elevation, and range. So you've got your elevation, which is an angle of how far up off from the horizon, and range is how far away it is, and so on. And they use this to tell an object of where it is. But the STS-48, after all this is going on, and that one that's off in the distance and that everyone's centered on, it's only one of at least 6 to 8 of these craft flying around. And what they don't show is when they pan the camera back down and we see the shuttle bay, lo and behold, in lower Earth orbit, down below the shuttle, is this immense triangle.
It's there all the time.
This is what fired the brilliant pebbles. Which
can you see just a tip of the triangle, or
no? You can see because you're
the
looking
whole
right
thing
down on it. You're looking at the whole thing, and these are the big ones. They're 1 mile in length. This is what I say, and I'm probably the only one saying it. This is what flew over Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago, and so many of the ones are showing it as like a wing. This is not true because people who have been under the thing when it flew over saying it blocked out the sky.
It's because they were so big.
Well, they're a mile, and they're going to say, well, how did they build this thing? No, we can build it anywhere.
Most of them in orbit around the Earth, you think?
It's hard to say. We've got areas that they could read on the ground where they could have built it and no one have seen it. We don't know for certain, or it could have been built in sections and taken up. We don't know.
Yes, folks, just to reference you to what a mile is, if you're from San Luis Obispo, a mile would go from the Mission Plaza to the Motel Inn. That's about the length of a mile, because I run it every so often. That's quite a long, that's pretty big craft.
Yeah, 5,280 feet. But
and because of the electrogravitic nature of it, the lifting capability is no big deal. It's technology that boggles the mind to understand how it...
Well, they put out a book called Electrogravitic Systems, and it was done by Thomas Vallon. It put it out and reports on a new propulsion mythology. They had a Leslie Caraba on that did a review of it, and let me see if I can find it here. But essentially, what they had said, and what she had said in this, is that if this technology was developed, it would be the biggest leap in technology from anything that we've ever seen. It's virtually like from the Stone Age to the present day. This is the kind of thinking of most of the people I run into, that this has never been developed. I've actually run into people saying, oh, it was worthless, it didn't go anywhere. Well, that last one is what our government wants us all to believe.
It's a distraction, yes.
Right.
Some people even think that the Roswell situation was actually a cover story for something that really happened in regards to electrogravitics. I haven't had that proven to me, but I'm thinking that it could be possible.
No, it's not, because that was 1947.
Well, it was a little too early.
That's a little too early because they were still kind of, Brown was still working on this thing at the time, but it wasn't until 1958 that he convinced them. And the first craft was, Mancraft was built probably around 60 or 61. A video that I have of Brown's experiments from 1958 through 1960. It's a color silent film because it was done on the old 8mm home movie cameras at that time. Actually has a small part in there which I definitely believe is the underside part of the prototype craft is actually shown on it, which is fascinating. When you get into this thing and start looking at it, anyone who hasn't been studying electrogravitics is not going to know what they're looking at. But once you've studied it and know how it functions, how it works, then you can start putting things together, what they were doing. And looking at his patents also, I have 5 patents that he did. And reading into that tells you a lot of what he was working on. I can say is that the technology is fascinating as a propulsion drive, but as I said earlier, the big picture is, believe it or not, free energy. And that is what I'm presently working on with
that seems to be sort of a suppressed technology, but not for everybody. I mean, it's within the governments.
We now have, up to about 3, 4, 5 years ago, the federal government would not even accept a patent or give out a patent number for a free energy device. They now do. This is the changing attitude of our government. All I can say is I don't something like that political is that we need to stay away from the Republicans because I think the Republicans would stop that. It's the Democrats that are the ones who put this forth and come out with it.
To let it be released?
Right. To even to start doing that sort of thing because they're starting to realize that we're running out of petroleum. We can't rely on that stuff for any longer time. The damage that it's doing to our planet is immense.
Maybe too many Republicans own stock in oil fields. I'm making jokes, folks. I don't care if you...
Yeah,
I know
I
there
think
might be
so.
some Republicans out there, but gosh, you got to think about the money does talk, and it apparently could be an issue. If new technology would save our planet, and at the same time get us to somewhere with less money, I think that's a good idea.
Oh yeah, it's what I've got going is it's something that Brown did, and then taking a little something from De Palma, which came out with the N machine, or they call the N machine the N motor, and all it is a permanent magnet in a cylinder, in the shape of a cylinder, and you take one wire, attach it to the top of it, that's your positive, run it out and down and through it. With another wire through it is your negative, and you rotate the whole thing, and it produces electricity, which is completely different than how you would think, or away from how we would think that you normally have to have an electric generator, which if you break one apart, you've got your permanent magnet, and you've got these windings on other magnets, and the whole thing turns inside of it to get power. But we don't have to do this with this. And the belief is that actually what it's doing is tapping higher dimensions. And as water flows downhill, energy is flowing downhill. And we go as far as looking into it, and even Hoagland has talked on this, that our suns, our stars that we see out there are actually portals in from higher dimensions, and all that energy is coming out of it is actually flowing down from the higher dimensions and coming out. Because one of the things that they were looking at, if it was a thermonuclear reaction going off in the sun, we should be seeing particles, certain nuclear particles should be coming to the surface to reflect that.
No, we're not.
We're not seeing nowhere near any of these particles, almost none. So that's what they're now starting to think. And you get into tetrahedron geometry, the stuff a lot of Hoagland's worked on, it is very good. And he's not really the one who worked on it. He got this from other people. Hoagland is like a mouthpiece, setting stuff out. It's just good for information because he gets it out from everybody else. But
to my way of thinking, if the sun works that way, then it shouldn't burn out.
They probably can, because they can. It's like a wormhole that comes out, and that can collapse.
It could.
Oh yeah. You get into some really hypothetical physics, astrophysics.
You sure do.
It's really involved. But yeah, it could go out, and then things could happen just the other way as these holes close up.
I noticed your drawing there. Is that some of the work that you're working on?
This is actual the part of the De Palma. That's off of a book that shows his work.
Oh, okay.
That is, I don't actually have any of my drawings down here. That's still confidential. I'm still working on it. Once I get
you
ready
actually
to
have a
come out
workshop, and you're building things.
It's not in the sense of ready to actually build it. Possibly by the end of next year, I'll have the prototype up and running. And essentially, it's getting the financing and money together to get all the parts.
Would this technology work in an automobile too?
You'd be able to put it in a car. You know, as I tell people, pull the engine out, leave the transmission in there, put an electric motor in. And Brown had actually developed an electric motor based on electroconvitics that had up to a 1,000,000 to 1 torque ratio. It's an incredible power off the thing. And
with this automobile,
and this generator in there with no batteries and no charging it. Once you charge it, it stays charged. Literally, it runs out. There's some other things I'm starting to look into, because Brown later in the 70s was doing experiments on just good old dirty rocks. You can find it out there in the garden somewhere, find a big rock, and then clean it off, dry it out in a kiln oven, and then take and brush on copper on either side, so you can attach a wire to it. It acts like a capacitor. You get it going, it doesn't run out.
What happens to the rock? Does it levitate then, or
no? It just sits there.
It's got a charge.
Just charging completely. Because essentially, the kind of when you get into dielectric material, is rock is that dielectric material. So essentially, just creating between putting the two copper brush strokes on it, and that you're creating a capacitor. and it's charged.
Well, I've heard a number of times, I think Sean David Morton is the one who has said that our saucers are nothing but big capacitors.
Well, that's correct. Another thing I will tell people, okay, if you see a UFO and it's colored black, it's ours. If it's silver and other things, well, you've got a real one. But
it could be off-world, maybe. Yeah.
All of the ones, and you've seen the black triangles that are flying around, that is part of this technology. It's ours.
Now, is there a reason for black?
There's a reason for black is if you get into looking into how our mentality is now for starting a battle or war, is you don't come in broad daylight, you attack in the middle of the night. And so the craft should be black with no running lights and no tactics or transponders recording it, so that nothing shows up on radar. That's the idea of the 117. When it went over Baghdad, you had these poor idiots firing. You saw streams of bullets going up in the air, and they didn't touch one of our craft. Not one, because they had no idea where they were. They were just firing anywhere. Most of their damage and their casualties were from their own ammunition falling down.
Isn't there? Believe there are sightings in which people look up and they see a part of the sky that's black, and there's no stars in that part of the sky.
Yeah, what you're seeing is probably one of ours flying over.
If they do put stars on them, then they'd be real hard to see. In other words, I'm talking about some paint or something. I don't know what they put the stars on with. But
yeah, use some sort of fluorescent paint on it or something.
But that wouldn't work though, because that would be moving stars. And I think we figured out. I think it's better to stay totally black. Mm-hmm. I just figured that one out.
Yeah, the interesting things on it is that. The triangles and all these and that, from what I've found out, in about 10 years, roughly, the United States Air Force will become known as the United States Space Force and Space and Air Force. That's the title it'll be come up with. And by 2020 or thereabouts, or to 2025, it will be known as strictly the United States Space Force. The air part of it will disappear.
These name changes are on.
They're already occurring.
They're already starting to take place.
That's correct.
Because the word air doesn't mean anything. We're not using an airfoil anymore.
Well, we're moving into an area where it's virtually dealing with space itself. And going out, because
it works better in a vacuum. That's what we mean.
We've moved so far ahead in this technology now that it's commonplace now with this group, and as it is right now, it's a small group that has this knowledge, and not the main part of the Air Force. So if you call up, you see a thing, and you call up,
they wouldn't know what Vandenberg.
They don't know, because they're not privy to that information.
So it's still compartmentalized information.
Oh yeah, it's highly strict.
And they haven't really broken it out. Those are actual photographs. They appear to be that you have.
No,
there.
this is an artist drawing.
A good one
by Nicholas.
Oh, that one,
Nicholas
yeah.
From that 1990, and it's what I call a best guess of what our craft looks like today. And it shows one guard out, and. Another one looks like he's doing some fueling or grounding it. I don't know exactly. Could be anything. And two helicopters coming. It's a very interesting drawing. But a photo that I received some time ago, and it was just off of a color photocopier, which is not the original photo, which I would have loved to have. It was taken at a U.S. air base in Japan. And I'm not
It looks like
certain.
yeah.
Well, the top... right corner is, you can see the bottom of a craft going out. What it is was the SR-71 Blackbird was taking off, and that's what the cameraman was taking a picture of. He was concentrating on that, and it wasn't until after he developed the picture, and he's looking around. In the background towards the left center is this disc-shaped craft sitting outside a hangar with an Air Force def band next to it, and this is a major breach in security. And it's show you, it's right here.
Oh yes, the craft is sitting on the ground. and the one that took off is on the top part of the picture. That's
Yeah,
big,
they were-
and you
now
got
it's-
the attention. But they're
They're focusing on the SR-71, so that's in Chris. So that down there is a little bit blurry. It's not perfect.
But you put the comparison drawing taken from the artist's rendition that matches up exactly with this object that's to the right of the hangar. It's a craft sitting on the ground, folks. It's there.
With 3 legs.
It's three legs. It's just like...
What's interesting is just over to the left or right of it, you can see head-on is a normal corporate jet. And you'll see the wing and the fuselage straight on. If you look straight on aircraft. So you have that to
You're
compare
so used to the images that you
with
see.
the other.
Yeah, that's one of our highly classified crafts sitting in front of a hangar because some photographer was at the right place at the right time.
I wouldn't doubt that the people who were involved, the crews involved with that sitting out there, are probably spending time in a federal penitentiary.
Because they let
this is a 30th level. This is a 30th level security clearance. If you want to call it majestic or whatever, it is the highest security level we have.
Now, the image that was produced on the color drawing, I know there was the witness. I've seen that picture before. Witness was necessary to give us that detail.
That's what I've heard. That he did the drawing, the painting from someone who saw it.
Yeah, it's a good description. Yeah, and that's what it looked like.
And what I tell people it shows, and that's when I do my talk, it's a best guess. It's not a.
Oh, he wouldn't get in trouble because that's hearsay, secondhand knowledge.
Oh yeah, that's no problem on that.
The person that wasn't zip-lipped in the first place, they could be in trouble maybe. But
yeah, so it's this part that's going on. But anyway, the free energy device I'm hoping to have out in about 2 years. By the end of 2001, it should be available to the public, and I want to have it so it's very inexpensive. Everyone can afford it. You'll be able to take in any vehicle and convert it to this.
You could dump your V8 engine and put this in instead.
With the setup on that, you probably have more power under the hood with this setup than you did originally with your V8.
Now, would it levitate above the road, or how would it go?
No, it doesn't work that way.
It would still spin the wheels.
This is essentially all you're doing. This is for a generator to produce electricity. This is not a propulsion drive in a sense of gravity. This part of it is strictly for producing electricity. And that is what was the bigger picture. Brown considered the propulsion system as an ashtray development, a side development.
Yes, it was.
And going with the free energy was what he was really hoping for. That is now what I've been allowed to do from the family, to go on and do this. And once it's out, the same generator you'll be able to put in your home and disconnect PG&E and never have to pay another electric bill again, literally. Now, if they want to still supply natural gas, that's their business, but...
You need the gas to cook the
No, they're usually good,
food,
but electricity for other things than that,
be used. Yeah.
Why have to pay that bill every month? To heck with them. That's what this will do, and I'm looking at a range of about 400 to 500, maybe 600 at the most for the generator.
That would run a house or run a car?
You'd run anything.
Anywhere, yeah.
You could probably put these things in an office building and run all the power you needed in there. You could take a big diesel truck, the big semis and that. Cabs and pull the engines, the big diesel engines out of it, which cost these guys an immense amount of money when they're doing all this delivery all across the United States, and have one of Brown's motors in it, which is incredible torque capability. They'll never have that bill again, which means all other costs can come down.
Wouldn't that lower the weight of the vehicle, because wouldn't that thing weigh less than the diesel engine took out?
It really depends on the size of the electric motor. Now, that's going to be a weight.
Of course, you have to spin the wheels of this big truck, so you need to have a good-sized motor to do that.
Right, and it's just you're still going to have the transmission in there. You need that.
You're going to go through that transmission still, okay.
Oh, yeah. Why go to a lot of extra problems? You've still got all your shifts you can go through. Everything will be normal. All you're changing is your power source, which was the engine. You throw that away and just put this electric motor in with the generator. Everything else can be hooked up. If you've got power steering, air conditioning in your car, all that can still be hooked into this.
Because they use electricity.
Well, they use electricity, but they're also doing not always electricity. They're turning a belt to turn something which causes it, and it can be altered or whatever you need to do. So you still have everything normal, just how you're getting around, how you're causing your propulsion is different. But no, you're not going to levitate. Flying cars are out.
No, that might be dangerous. That might be dangerous.
Some of these people, yes, I think they are. They're a little bit crazy in the way they drive. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping to have done and ready by the end of 2001.
Are there any companies, major companies that have that you've approached?
Absolutely not.
You're going to do it on your own.
I refuse to go with it because if you get with a company, they're going to take it away from you. And if you go to the wrong place, you're in trouble. As I was coined at the show on that, I said, I do not want to be a Tesla with a J.P. Morgan as a supplier for funds. Because if we studied Tesla and what Morgan did when he found out that Tesla wanted to give the power away for free,
yeah, he sure did.
He totally stopped giving Tesla any money.
I don't think Edison was real happy with Tesla either, was he?
Edison didn't have anything to do with...
No, it didn't?
No.
Tesla's problems? No.
Tesla, well, there was a difference there between them of one wanting DC and the other wanting AC.
It was
Tesla developed in AC, which we all use today. And it's his doing that. So, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know where they're getting their power from or how it got to them to begin with. And it's one man, Tesla, Nikola Tesla, who was a genius. Now, I've seen people try to claim that he was an extraterrestrial and all this other stuff.
I don't believe that.
I don't think so either. We have a lot of crackpots in this field as well. So use a little bit of intelligence and know that some of that stuff is not true. And what I always tell people in my talks is say, don't take me for what I'm saying and that. Get some of the information I have and do the research and looking up for yourself. But if you get on the internet, you're going to find a lot of people don't think it's been produced. That they've gone anywhere.
Are there chat rooms or are there sites to research electrogravitics?
There's different sites around that talk about it, but and put things out. But again, there's nothing that's saying that, oh, this has really been developed or anything like that. I'm the only one. Everyone else is saying, oh no, that doesn't go anywhere.
When I look at those photographs that were taken on the Nellis test range, I can't help but think that somehow the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. Otherwise, that radar site would not have been looking at that part of the sky at that time.
Well, near the end of the tape and that, you'll actually hear a voice come on it saying non-flare, which means stop doing what they're doing. They're telling you they're being ordered to shut down. In fact, they actually come up, and it'll actually come up there and say non-radiating, which means that they're not. They turn their radar off.
Turn it off.
They turn that off. They turn other things. They're starting to shut down. And then the tape ends, and that's when they turn the cameras off as well.
Enough of that soundbite got in to spill the beans that there was. Right. This was
the individual who did smuggle it out of Nellis.
He had to be smuggled.
Is in prison.
Is he?
We don't tell names.
No.
How I received the tape was indirectly knowing one of the controllers out there. And he had got a copy from Sightings, which then...
Your person got it.
Yeah, how I got, and then I got it from him, a copy of it. And so I actually had the copy of the video 2 months before Sightings showed it in 1995. Which I've never seen such idiotic reporting in my life.
You mean the way they covered the sightings?
Yeah, they had their so-called experts saying in there, oh, gee, it looks like it's changing shape. Because the field around it is fluctuating around on the surface as you see it. And that just isn't what's happening. The craft isn't changing shape.
It's still the same shape. You're just seeing the field. That's not a shape of the craft.
No.
That's a different thing.
That's a different thing. But see, they have no idea what they're looking at. They're completely... the one expert they had was on military hardware. Well, his expertise was in military hardware that everyone knows about. They can get access to it because he's not fooled with stuff that are told about stuff that is classified. And second was that they even said, oh, we sent a copy of this to the Pentagon. Well, anyone in their right minds, depending on what office they sent it to in the Pentagon, they may not even know anything about it. And their orders there are, they won't respond to it.
They can't because they don't know what it is.
Yeah, there's two different areas. Either they don't know what it is, and if it is arson, they're not supposed to respond anyway. Because responding to it would automatically saying that it is.
Now, I understand that it's gotten to the point that if a citizen out there, like myself, gets a congressman involved, an oversight committee, that they'll only show him as much information as they need to, so that he'll just,
Well, they had it with the I think it was the NSA or something like that. I forget which one for Stanton Friedman getting papers on the Majestic 12. They wanted stuff dealing with Roswell and UFOs out of them, and I think they had something like maybe it's CIA, but can't remember exactly. About 156 pieces, and they totally refused to release it, and they kept going in. They got a judge to look at it, and they wouldn't even show it to him. And then when they did, he had to be given an extremely high clearance to see it, and he immediately said, "No, you're not going to get to see it." When they did finally release this report they had on why, 75% of it was blacked out.
To get out the magic markers, we got another report so nobody can see.
This is where it gets into it, and this is something that's been going on for over 50 years. So, and it deals with what we've learned.
Yeah, so folks, don't try to call your congressman and ask about why we aren't getting free energy, because he probably wouldn't have a clue. Do you have any information that you want to share for people who might want to contact you for...
If they want to get in touch with me...
I saw your card there.
Yeah. They can do several things in that. They can log on to my webpage, and
they can research it themselves.
Well,
or contact you.
I have a little bit of stuff there, and it has a way to contact me there. But what it is, it's www.gravitydrive.com, and
Easy
Gravity
one.
Drive is all together, spelled out,
in lowercase,
and all lowercase, of course. And that's my domain name. And
got your own domain. That's good.
Oh yeah, grab that down, including my license plate on my car. But if they don't have access to the internet, they can write to me at P.O. Box 742, and it's Alviso, Alviso, California 95002. And I do have a few things that I have available that I can sell them. They're very expensive, like $2 and $3 a piece, and $5 at the most. So if anyone, because I'm not out there to make money, what I want to do is to let the public know what's really going on.
Educate them.
Right. Also, if I know this is on the Saturday the 18th, we're holding our general meeting for Northern California MUFON on Sunday the 19th. And it starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's in the Willow Glen district of San Jose. And essentially coming up this way, if you take 101 up to 280, take 280 north, and get up to the Meridian Race Street exit. And when you get off there, you're going to take a short turn to the right. Another shortly after that, turn to the left, take it down to Meridian, and turn left on Meridian. Take that down to Minnesota. Long way of directions here, but that's how you can get in. And then it's Minnesota, you're turning left on that, go down to Hicks, and it's a right-hand turn there. And it's at 1540 Hicks Avenue, and it's the Divine Science Community Center. And you'll find it on your left-hand side when you come in. Mm-hmm. And everyone's welcome. It's a $3 charge at the door.
And what'll be the topics?
The person we have talking this week, this time is, let's say, John Shirley. He's the writer of The Crow, and the author of the screenwriting for it as well.
The Crow. Yeah,
yes.
I know the movie.
And what he's going to be talking about is the pitfalls of ufology. So
that's a good topic.
Which would be kind of interesting.
There are pitfalls.
Yeah, we usually have other little reports going on up there as well of sightings, things that are going on that we're working with.
Now, is this a regular meeting that you have once a month?
It's once every other month.
Every other month.
And it's always the third Sunday. So, this is in September.
So this is the month.
The last one will be in November for this year.
Third Sundays.
Always the third Sunday.
I'll communicate with people in our local group. It's called UFO Awareness Group. Perhaps somebody would want to make a field trip up there this weekend, or on November is the next time.
Yeah.
I've been contacting you. Is the meeting place always the
yeah, we've been holding
1540 Hicks Street in the
Hicks Avenue.
Yeah,
we've been holding it there for the past several years now. So
it's good to have keep the same place so people can find it, especially if you have occasional out of town.
Yeah, we have Ruben, who you met.
Uriarty is going to be coming up.
Well, he is our Northern California State director.
Mm-hmm.
He was just promoted from assistant to stay because Virgil Staff, who used to be our Northern California State director, is now the director for Western Regional Director and takes care of 14 states. So he got boosted upstairs.
Now, on Sunday, what time does the event?
From 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
4:30. Okay, so a person could drive up in the morning.
Yeah.
And get there in time.
Yeah.
So we're going to go see if I can get somebody encouraged to maybe hook up with me if I got the time.
Well, I'm planning to, in a sense, in the next few months, to move back down here in the area.
Well, then we'll get you in our group.
Oh yeah, I'll be going up there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You have some property then in this area, or you just like it around here?
I lived here a long time ago. I left here 31 years ago, and went to San Diego, and then went in the Air Force and did some stuff, and then. But our family's had property in California Valley since '61. But I'm looking here on the coast right now because the property's not quite set up yet for me to live on. That's coming up.
You'll get it. You'll get what you want. You just work at it.
Well, see, I need a place so I can build a craft.
Yeah, you need some. Yeah, so the craft would be flying around here. No.
So
well, don't get a flying one. Just perfect the technology first.
Well, actually, I'm in a part now where by the time I get ready, in about 2 to 3 years, I'll actually be ready to build it. The talk is that the dielectric material that they were using for the aircraft is spent crushed uranium. Now you know why, everyone. They're buying these old spent rods from nuclear reactors in different parts of the world, Asia and that, and they're bringing them in here.
That's where it's going?
That's where it's going.
Well, it's good recycling.
Yeah, that's one way in that, and it's another way of keeping it out of the hands of everybody else.
We don't get the wrong people to get the goodies, so they can maybe do something else with it. Maybe there's not much more you could do with it than this.
Well, I always think that part of the reasons why the Cold War ended was the Soviets. Number one, we were outspending them. But number two is that they found out that we have this technology and we're so far ahead of them that they could never have a chance to try to catch up. And to have the materials and so forth that we have to do it is involved, because these craft, even like the B-2, they're not welded, they're glued. If you can imagine that. The whole skin on the outside is glued. The paint is special on the B-2, the black paint. It's specially designed because it absorbs radar.
So nobody can see them.
It helps reduce the actual signature on radar of the craft down to about the size of a bumblebee. So no one's going to see that.
Now, is that skin a new kind of skin that they use on the craft too?
Oh yeah.
It's not metal.
It is not. Northrop in the early 1960s was already doing the testing of electrifying the leading edge of a wing, doing the testing on how to do that. That's the prelude to building this ship. So,
electrify the leading edge.
Right. There's a very quick little part of the silent color film footage from Brown which actually shows a section of a wing lifting using electrogravitics.
Now, was such a wing glow?
I think it has a lot to do with how much power is being put out. And I think it's the reason why on the disc it glows so much. I mean, it really glows, because they're putting out an immense amount of power, and essentially it's very high voltage DC, direct current, and they're probably in the tens of millions of volt range on the surface of that. Well, I don't think they have to go that high with the B-2.
You know, I'm beginning to think that one guest I had on this program a while back who had a sighting of a mile-long craft in Salida, Colorado, was actually sighting something of ours because he had problems with his video camera because the craft was so close that the video camera got knocked out. You know, electromagnetic.
Yeah. Well, any of the crafts, and we've noticed that even with real UFO sightings, you get real close to it because they're working essentially the same way.
The field is so powerful.
Yeah, the fields are very, very powerful.
That the video cameras, I don't know, there's
they run on electricity.
The imaging device in there just can't handle it.
Well, they're running on electric, and by these fields of magnetic fields going in, they can interfere with your flow of power with inside. They can probably actually put it in reverse and stop it. Just a little thing, as I was coming down here today, I have my radio on, I'm driving past a big rig, and right when I'm right next to it and that, I'm starting to pick up his CB.
Enough.
Because he's got it so high up on it, so everything around him is affected.
You've got a field right there.
Yeah, so you're picking up what he's talking about instead of hearing your radio station.
I know, that's what happens.
So essentially it's the same thing.
I know that there's been more than one video camera that had to go to a repair shop because somebody photographed or tried to photograph a UFO. I know that Timothy Good in his Alien, I think, Contact book mentions this phenomenon of...
Well, we've actually seen it, video recorders go out walking into a crop circle. So
that's enough there too, yeah.
There is a magnetic field within them that they're actually recording. And by using dowsing, you're going in, you're actually going to be able to pick that field up.
Denny Clark up from Freedom, California, leads Magical Mystery Tours. It's a crop circle tour, and she mentions that even the farmers, if they try to plow too soon after the circle, they have engine problems too.
Yeah, they get in the middle and it dies on them.
Yep, the engine's gone then. So one thing that I've noticed that also that a lot of the aerial photographs of crop circles are taken at oblique angles because Denny also confirmed that airplanes have had engine problems when they're too low over a crop circle.
Yeah, Reuben was saying they're flying over and they nearly crashed.
They actually can crash, yeah.
So that's it.
Electromagnetism is a very key factor. I can see it over and over again. It's a thread that runs through the crop circles, runs through the Nellis test range. That all connects together.
Well, what we're finding out is that, and we know that magnetism, electricity, and gravity are all interrelated.
There's a formula that I don't know.
There's a formula that works on all of them, and so we knew that magnetism and electricity were kind of connected, but they did not put the gravity part into it, and it's this electricity which actually controls. And if you look and think of the disk, and you have positive and negative. Well, the positive charge is going to create what's known as a gravity well. And the negative charge is going to create a gravity hill. Together, what you're creating is a gravity wave, or the best way to think of it is a surfer on a surfboard riding a wave.
He's on top of the wave.
That's how this craft flies. So it takes that wave in the direction of its positive charge wherever it goes, and just continuously rides it.
You know, some of the best of the videos or films that I've seen of the Billy Myers case, the craft look like they're floating on ocean waves. They're kind of bobbing along.
One of the things I want you to know that Billy Myers is a proven fraud.
Okay, well
they have actually done in many of his pictures and that we've actually been able to see with.
The fishing line?
The lines coming out holding up. They have balloons holding these things up. They're little models.
But aren't there other craft that have been photographed that look like they're bobbing on ocean wave because they're riding some gravity waves close to the Earth?
Well, even that I kind of wonder
if it's about
correct
that one.
in that, because essentially all you'd have to do to lower it. Now, some of them you've seen is what they call a pendulum swing motion to come down. That's just having fun with it. That's just swinging back and forth. Because all you'd have to do is you come into a hover mode, and then just lower your voltage, and decrease and it would come down.
It's not actually. I don't think you're doubting that some of these films might be real. I think what you're saying is that they're not riding on the gravity currents from the Earth at all. They're changing their own.
Well, they changed their own. They're not riding on the Earth's field in that. That's completely.
We do have a field, but
but it's not how these function.
Not at all. They have to have internally generated I've seen some of the drawings of supposedly the Adamski craft. I know that inside there's a big pole or something.
Well, the Adamski craft is very interesting because I think that was done in the 50s or late 50s, early 60s.
Right.
I think what they were actually seeing was our prototype.
It's an early test.
Because I will tell you that Brown actually did a small model that he was using testing that's exactly the same.
It's got those 3 balls on the bottom of.
Right, they're special design setups for which you'll see in the tape that I have. That is part of it in the design, and the shape of the craft. I mean, he actually made a small model about 8-10 inches across. Looks exactly like that. Like that picture. I
don't doubt the Adamski photographs. I've seen quite a few of them. I have a feeling that what I do doubt is the idea that there was Venetians involved. I think that's a cover story.
I think that whoever was doing it was a nutcase that took the picture.
Well, yeah.
And you have to when you ever do something like this, you have to research that individual. You have to find out who they are,